Welcome to this tutorial on adding, deleting, and modifying constraints in FreeCAD Sketcher. FreeCAD is a free and open source 3D modeling software that allows you to create and edit 2D and 3D designs. The Sketcher workbench is one of the most important workbenches in FreeCAD, as it allows you to create 2D sketches, which you can then use to build 3D objects. Constraints are a crucial part of the sketching process, as they allow you to define and control the geometry of your sketches. In this video, we'll be exploring the various ways in which you can add, delete, and modify constraints in FreeCAD Sketcher. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced user, you'll find plenty of useful tips and tricks to help you improve your sketching skills and create more precise and accurate designs. So let's get started. Here we are in FreeCAD. This is my version of FreeCAD. I am on version 0.20.2 and this is 29177 plus 426 git. I don't know what all that means, but basically this is the latest download. I haven't been there today, but I was there yesterday or the day before, and it was the same version, so I haven't updated. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and I'm just in, this is started up, and I'm in part design. Some of you may come into there's like a main screen that you get here. I don't have mine switched on, so when you come in, get into the part design workbench, and then you're going to hit this button to create a new file. We're going to hit this button to create a part, and I've just turned on my mouse pointer follower, and so you can see what I'm typing here. So the next thing we're going to do is going to hit create body. Okay, so I'm going to add a sketch. And the important thing about the sketch is this is how you create all your models. So it's important to feel comfortable with sketching. If you feel comfortable with sketching, you can do design in FreeCAD. If you're not comfortable with sketching, you're not going to be able to create designs in FreeCAD because you're going to be worried about whether or not the sketch works out. So let's try this. I'm going to draw a shape. And notice when I move this around, you see that line that pops up. That's my horizontal constraint. So if I want that line to be horizontal, I need that to show. If I don't want it to be horizontal, I can do it this way. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do a horizontal one. One thing with the polyline tool is you can hit an M and hit M again, and it'll allow you to create an arc. So it's just hitting M. Puts in those different modes. I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to do this one. Okay, so that's roughly our shape. And what I like to do is I'm going to constrain it with geometry first. By that I mean I'm not going to apply dimensions until after I have it constrained the way I want. So right now this thing will move all over the place. This line has a constraint, it's horizontal, so it's never going to be at an angle. This line doesn't have any constraint, so it's basically freeform. Same with this one here. So this one and this one are freeform, no constraints applied. This one has a vertical constraint, you can see it right there. So I can't, that one's not going to tilt over, it's always going to be vertical. This one's always going to be horizontal. This one has a tangency, which is this guy. So that means this line and this arc are tangent to each other. So it's going to run nicely into there. This arc and this line don't have that tangency. If you look, it hasn't become tangent. So if I muck with that, there, you can see it's gone bulbous. So we probably want that to be tangent as well. So we can apply that. We can get this line and make those tangent. And there I have it tangent. And then one thing we have to do when we're constraining is something has to be constrained to this center point. So I'm going to constrain the center of this arc to this center point, and I'm going to use that coincident constraint, and that now locks it there. So what that also does is it locks this to be symmetrical around that point because it's on that arc and its tangent. So I've locked that up. That's a good thing. Now if I wanted to tilt this guy over, I can't because of this. So this vertical constraint, I can select it here and delete it. Now I can tilt it. And I'm going to just Control Z to go back, put that constraint back in. If I select it here and I go over to here, you can see that it's highlighted over here. So the constraint is highlighted. I can unselect this. It'll turn that constraint off, but the constraint is still applied, so it's still vertical. If I want to get rid of the constraint, I can select it here, and I can just hit the delete key, and now that constraint is gone. So there are two ways to find your constraint. You can use the constraint, the picture of the constraint that's by the line, local to the line, or you can go down to here and you can select them. And as you select them, you can see they're turning green here. If I zoom in, you can see right there that that constraint number 4 is this tangency constraint. So you can delete them from this list with delete, or you can go in and delete them here. Now if I want that line to be vertical again, I can select it and re-add that vertical constraint. If I select it, you can see it's now constraint number 10 is the constraint for this vertical line. And I can change these. I can make this horizontal now. So if I've decided I want that to be horizontal, constraint number 11 is now this one. So I have a horizontal constraint. And then equally, I can have an angular constraint. So I can select those two, apply an angle. And I have the constraint selected as well. So let me just go back, select just those two lines, select my angle. I'll call that actually 82.5. That sounds like a good number. So that's my angular constraint. Now I noticed in this version, where it puts those angles is not right here, which is where I'd like it to be. It sort of plops it on a line, but it's not a big deal. It is locking that angle now. So one thing I like to do is I like to make shapes and then see if I can constrain them. And I do that just for fun because I'm weird. But I also do it because once you're comfortable constraining these sketches, you will be much better at FreeCAD. And it will allow you to create designs in FreeCAD rather than worrying about your sketches. So I've found the more comfortable I am with sketching, the more I can literally worry about what my design is going to be rather than how am I going to model this thing. So with that in mind, how would we go about constraining this? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give this radius a dimension. I think I have all my geometry tied up, right? So I got this angle tied up. I have, these are horizontal, this is vertical. These are tangent. I don't think there's any other geometry that I'm worried about. I already have this symmetry right here, so that's good. So I'm going to give this a dimensional constraint. And I'm going to use this new tool. This is the constrain arc or circle. With this drop down, you can see it's constrain radius, constrain diameter, and this one will auto radius or diameter. I love this one, so you don't have to worry about what you're doing. And I'm just going to go, I'm going to round numbers up. So I'm just going to go with 9mm there. And that is my radius constraint. Now one thing you can see with constraints, once you start to lock things down, they change color. That's brilliant because we can work our way through. So now because I constrained this diameter, these lines won't move in and out anymore because this is rigid, it's centered here, so that has to be symmetrical around that center point. So now I can see that this bit moves, I can see that this bit moves, I can see that this moves. So I need some dimensions to lock those down. So the way I would do is I work my way out, and I'll just go from here to here. And select a dimension. Watch when you're selecting, like I just selected and I actually got, somehow I selected that. I didn't mean to select that, but I selected this as well. And that's going to mess up your dimensions. So watch when you're selecting. Sometimes it's not, like I clicked there and I clicked there, but look, it didn't get this one because it didn't go green. So if I try and do a dimension, it's like, wah, wah, you can't do that. It's basically saying the whole thing is redundant, constraints, blah, blah, it's all bad. So I'm going to cancel that. Make sure when you're selecting something that you're getting what you meant to get. Now if I put that dimension in, I'll make that 24. And what I like to do is I always pull my dimensions out so I can see them. And now you can see that this line is locked in, so it's no longer going to move, which means this won't move, but it can still move up. The next thing I need to do is constrain this from moving up and down this way. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to go straight off this point. And of course, if you're worried about in your model, if this height from here to here is important, dimension it that way. So let's do that. I'll dimension this line and I'll dimension it this way. I'll make that 25. And so that will give us a height there. I'll leave that way. And now this line is constrained. This horizontal line won't go up and down, but this point here can come in and out. So now I have to decide, is it this length I worry about or this length I worry about to get this right? Remember, I have this angle already locked in, so let's have a look. I think in my case it would be this line that I care about. So I'm gonna do that. Now remember, I selected this point earlier, and then I selected the line, so it's complaining that I've selected the wrong things. Just select somewhere else to deselect, reselect the line that you wanted to dimension, and then I'm going to make that 30 as a round number. And now once it goes green, that means everything is dimensioned per the way you want it. It's all constrained. Now, what if I wanted to add a cutout to this? So I can do that. Let's do that. I'll do it with a square. I'll just do it this way. I've decided now I want to cut out, and I'm going to cut it out this way. I'm going to take my trim tool. I'm going to trim that out, trim that off, trim that away, trim that away. Now, one thing that the trim tool can do, which it never used to be able to do, is it can delete a whole line, which is excellent because when you're trimming, you don't want to have to keep going back and forth on things. So that's how I would add that little slot in there. And then again, this slot, now I've got all kinds of things that have gone free and loose. The angle is still applied to this line, but not to this line. And I have, this has a horizontal constraint, this has a vertical constraint, this has a horizontal constraint. So if I want to keep those, if I want to keep it square like that, and the reason it got that horizontal and vertical is because I made it from using the square tool, creating a rectangle. So again, I need to decide what's important, and I would say the depth of this slot is probably the most important thing, and maybe would I bring that down square? Do I want that? I'll tell you what we're going to do. It's a little more difficult to constrain, but I'm going to constrain it in line with that where it used to be. So what's happened is this is all loose now, and I want to get those back constrained like a straight line across there. So let's do that because that's more difficult than just making it vertical and then being happy with it. So let's do what we were going to do, and we'll figure out how to constrain it. Okay, so what we want to do, we have this line floating in the wind, and this line is set by my angle. So I want this and this to be at the same angle. So I'll just select this, choose parallelism, so constrain parallel. Now I know they're at the same angle. Now the problem I've got is that this is running away from me and I want this to continue through here. Now I could do a vertical constraint, lock it there, but it would actually not be in line. To put it in line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a construction line. So when you hit this one, you toggle these lines between geometry and construction geometry. So I'm going to select construction. I'm going to hit a line there and select it so it's attached to there. Now what I'm going to do is say that line and that line are also parallel. Now that's one continuous line, and it doesn't matter where I put this. If you look, my construction line is attached to the two, so that keeps it all nice and lined up. And then I've decided that I want this and this distance to be controlled. So we'll go 12, and then the actual slot I want controlled. So we go with 11 for that. And now we are fully constrained except for the depth of this. And the depth of this I'd probably go from there. And there it is. Now we have a fully constrained model again. Okay. Round that off too. So now I have a fully constrained model, and I can leave that construction line there because it's construction. So when we create our pad, it won't use the construction line, of course. So that's another way to constrain. And again, if I want to go through my constraints and delete any of these constraints, including the dimensional constraints, I can go here and select them. Or I can just select them from here. And if I decided that this wasn't the important thing, but this gap was, so I could delete that one, then I could say from here to here was important, put that back in. And there's my important constraint. So again, that's how you do it. I will show you what it looks like when I pad it. So there, the construction line that was here is ignored. So hopefully that's helped. It's helped you to work through constraints. It's helped you to work through constraining sketches. Another tip I will give you is to keep your sketches simple. Don't try and include everything in one sketch. It's much easier to sketch a basic shape and then sketch another basic shape and constrain each of those than it is to draw the most complex shape and try and constrain that whole complex shape. So keeping it simple is very important. That will help you to get sketches constrained and get modeling and get designing and get using this stuff. So again, I thought it was good opportunity to do some more constraint information. I know it's something a lot of people have difficulty with, and I'm hoping that this will help. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, please leave them below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. You can also become a patron if you want to. You'll get early access to these types of videos. You also get some Patreon exclusive videos, and then you can also join the channel and be a channel member. It's very similar to being a patron, to be honest with you. It works the same way, and I share the same stuff across both. So again, thanks for all your support, and I'll see you on the next one.